Hey, everybody. Tonight, Adam Krautwurst and I'm Mike Shope. We're going to talk to Jerry Hooton, the winner of last year's main event at the FFPC. We'll see what we can get out of Jerry as to how he did it. We'll talk rookie landing spots, and if time permits, a shark story. This is The Deep End, going live. Get it, Adam? Sharks?
I'm excited about the shark story. I'm not going to lie.
Jerry, do you have any interest in sharks, by the way? We didn't talk about this in advance.
Yeah, don't let them swim up behind you. That's about my answer.
Seems like good advice. It may have
recently... remember Jaws when it scared everybody out of the water?
Yes.
We're going to need a bigger boat. Hopefully this boat tonight is big enough for all of us. It may have just happened to me last week, but I'm not sure. Again, that's later. We got to tease that, keep it out there. Jerry Hooton is with us. We're focused here at the Deep End. Thanks to Draft Sharks for sponsoring us. We're focused on the high-stakes players, the winners, how they did it. And, Jerry, let's just start right there. So you had the main event winner in 2020. I mean, that's an incredible job, of course, in every season. What was the reason? What did it for you?
Probably isolating some players that were just overlooked for what I thought was a pretty silly reason. Diggs being the main culprit, Waller and Hopkins. Everybody can remember going into last year, everybody thought, well, they're moving teams. They're not going to get the same targets. They're just not. And I just thought, I didn't see it that way. I just thought those were the go-to guys on that team. And it worked out. Those three guys, obviously carried us.
Yeah, that's interesting, Adam, how Diggs and Hopkins, I love that aspect of this. Because everybody that we talk to, back to the Draft Sharks podcast, everybody that you read and listen to, they're always pretty much, last year at least, they're telling you zag when everybody else is zigging, make sure you're different. And one theme last year with Hopkins being traded and Diggs being traded was watch out for receivers on new teams. And what Jerry ended up doing with that lineup is one of those zag when everybody else was zigging. I'm not sure. I mean, it was a little bit second level. I'm not sure it occurred to everybody that was sort of a strategy last year, but in this case, it paid off. I mean, to say the least.
Yeah, it's funny.
I'm sorry, I got Diggs in the middle of the 6th round.
Yeah, I mean that's huge, and it's so great to kind of look back, and everyone's like, yeah, kind of the same thing you're saying, Jerry, is how do you pass on Diggs in the 6th round? And Mike and I are from Western New York here, so we're kind of in the thick of it with the Bills and Diggs and Allen and all that, and I had Diggs on my most successful main event team last year, but I didn't have enough of him. And that was primarily because I didn't think the Bills were going to throw as much as they did. I mean, so, Diggs is sensational. He clicked really well with Allen, and I think not having that offseason certainly didn't affect them as much as I thought it would have. So you weren't worried about that lack of an offseason for the new guys, Jerry?
Well, I mean, that was kind of a concern. But I look at the Buffalo Bills team. Who on that team besides Diggs commands the football?
Sure, nobody.
So the ball was going to go his way. They were going to force him the ball one way or the other. Same thing with Darren Waller. Everybody thought, Waller's not going to have the same targets and everything. Who on the Raiders passing game besides Waller commands the football?
You know what tripped me up with Diggs, because he was not on any of my rosters. And again, like Adam said, we're in the area, which also can be a problem. Like, we've watched that team lose for 20 years, and like you can sort of get used to it and expect the worst. But I won't even blame that.
Super Bowls.
No, that's right. And Adam is too young. But yes, I remember those days. I went to those games, some of those games, and remember it very well. But last year with the Bills, you had the Diggs point you're making about target share and everything like that. That's right. They had just not been a team that had thrown the ball very much, and there was this complete transformation in their offense. And also, I wouldn't say I would be scarred by the 20 years as much as this. Sammy Watkins. And I'll tell you my mistake if you don't figure it out already beforehand. Watkins was such a high draft pick, Jerry. I mean, they traded up for him. You remember. And okay, if you're going to make that move, what you need, and I talked about this every day on WGR, what you need to do obviously, is just force the ball down his throat. That has to be whatever. I mean, I was probably saying 20 targets in those days, which is insane, but at least 10. Like he has to be, you have to justify the acquisition. And with Diggs, that's what they did. I mean, they traded a lot to get him, a first-round pick, other picks, but I had it in the back of my mind. I had the Bills doing what they did with Watkins. They did not do that with Watkins. There were games where he was a decoy, and that was their plan. So it didn't have to mean anything. I should have known better. Like it was all different coaches and management. Everything about the situation was different. It didn't matter that he played for Buffalo, but that was in my head, and that got me beat because Diggs. They did the thing that they didn't do with Watkins, which was throw, like you said, you predicted it, throw him the ball all the time.
Well, it's not that I thought he was going to get it. I didn't, expect him to do what he did. I mean, let's, be honest, but I thought in the middle of the sixth round, he was just tremendous value. But Buffalo couldn't run the football either. The only thing they could do was Allen run around and throw the ball to Diggs. I mean, that was their offense. And it finally caught up with them in the AFC Championship game, but I mean, that was their offense. Same thing in the Raiders. Find those guys who are the go-to guys on the team.
Right. We did know about Diggs, Adam, that he was great. That I didn't get tricked on that. Like I believed Matt Harmon's work, and we talked about this on an earlier show. I mean, Diggs is a big story from last year, and so is Allen. Yeah. But it was not a surprise to me that Diggs was an elite player. That's what I expected. I don't know about you. You're a Bills fan, and I don't know what you thought you were getting in the player.
Yeah, I knew I was getting a really good player, and I knew kind of as long as, like you said, as long as the Bills used him, that was going to be, he was going to have a great year, and kind of looking over at your roster here, Jerry, like you said, you were big on Waller. You obviously had Hopkins and Evans and Diggs. You basically, did you shoot for those kind of target hog receivers there on is the number one receivers in their offense? I know Evans had some competition, but Waller, Hopkins, and Diggs really didn't.
Yeah, precisely. That's what I'm. You got to go after the guy who commands the football on that team's offense. Because if it's running back or tight end or whatever, get the guys who command the football because that's who the ball is going to be funneled to.
So, Jerry,
that teams. That's who those. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, too, for interrupting. Of course, this is just like the internet, and we're all like a half second behind. Did you draft this team online?
No, we drafted live in Vegas.
You went to Vegas. Is that how you like to do it? Is that sort of like the only way, or how do you look at it?
Well, we draft our 4 main event teams live in Vegas, and it just kind of makes up. It's the only time Philip and I ever get to meet each other, so we kind of make a deal out of it.
So let's talk about that. Philip is your nephew?
Correct.
And you live on the West Coast, and do you sort of partner on picks and teams, or how do you make it work?
Well, we partner on – I do most of the best balls, the cheap best ball, $35 ones, because I have way more time on my hands. But the Dynasty, main events, everything, we talk everything out.
You said earlier that he has the trophy?
Yeah, I got mailed to his house. Hasn't seemed to find its way north yet.
Come on.
He lives in California?
Yeah, just outside L.A.
You feel like you probably deserve some time with that trophy.
I don't,
I do. I don't know if you do, but I Adam, right? I mean, we both feel like Jerry should get the trophy.
That's right.
I got the money. So, I got the money. The trophy can wait. I got the money, so we're cool.
So how do you make picks? When it comes down to it, this is the main event. This is a $1,900 entry. Do you ever have a problem figuring out what to do?
Well, yeah. The funny thing is when we're on the ends, we have more of a problem. In the middle, yeah, every now and again, but most of the time we're on basically the same page. But when one guy has a little bit harder feeling with it, you just go with it. You can't assume that you're perfect. And if your partner's got a strong feeling, all right, let's go that way.
Do you remember where you picked in this one, Jerry? I see you have Kamara. 6?
6.
Okay.
Was this after or before when Kamara had that small window where people worried that he might hold out? Remember that? Was this before or after that?
This was the Thursday of the first game, Thursday night game.
It was after that. He was already back.
Yeah.
With the Saints.
There was some things talking about him taking an epidermal. I kind of heard that rumbling. So a lot of people, in one of my drafts, he went at 109.
Yeah,
Wow.
right. Remember that, Adam? I mean, there was a short window there where you could get Kamara cheap. There was one draft where I did. I don't know if you took advantage of that at all.
Yeah, in fact, I remember doing a $500 auction draft in that 2 or 3 day window, and I ended up getting him as like the 7th or 8th running back price, and I ended up winning the whole thing. But I had a couple of good players, but yeah, Kamara was cheap there for sure. And so, Jerry, one of the things we like to do here on the deep end fantasy football podcast here is we like to kind of dig into, especially, congratulations on winning $500,000. But we like to dig into like how you won and kind of what's the secret to the sauce? What type of stuff do you find valuable to research? What stuff kind of do you not really worry about? Are you a zero RB guy? Are you a heavy running back guy? Like what's your deal?
Well, excuse me. I know this is a cliche, but I mean, you just got to let the draft kind of fall to you. Find 2 or 3 guys that you really want to target, and if you got to reach for them, then you got to reach for them. But I'm a believer in just sitting and seeing how the draft falls to you. I think that's the best way to go. I think if you go with a preconceived notion, okay, I'm going to go running back heavy, or I'm going to do one running back early than all wide receivers. If you go in with a preconceived notion, well, then you're trying to jam that notion into what's not really there. So just let it come to you. And if you go 4 wide receivers early, you go 4 wide receivers early. The way it falls
what that sounds like is you sort of divorce yourself from focusing on position groups. Is that the bottom line? Like I'm not taking this many running backs. It's just sort of you look at the board when it's your turn. Where's the best value?
If you're talking, redraft, I do a lot of best balls. If you're talking redraft, I like to get at least one guy. I get a pool, first, second round, maybe the top of the third. I at least want to get one of those guys.
But in a tournament like this, in a tournament like this, though, you drafted 6th. You said second round. So who would have been? Was Hopkins your second round pick? Looking at that roster.
Yeah, Philip was really high on Hopkins, so we took him in the second round.
You sort of gave in on that one.
Yeah, I would have gone in a different direction at that point, but I can't really make a strong argument against it, so we went with it, and it paid off.
Jerry, this is a $500,000 winner. Do you remember who you wanted?
Oh, no, not really. No.
Okay.
So no.
Okay. I don't know, Adam, if you're ready on it. Jerry, a couple times you brought up Waller as someone else who else was going to get the ball. That's a great point. And you think about the Raiders, a lot of us bought into rookies last year on the Raiders, but Waller was good, and he was one of my big regrets from last season. Like, why didn't I sort of trust what he had been already in his career? He wasn't super young either, even though he was kind of a new phenomenon. So you get to Waller, and was he somebody that you want to get tight end done, or was it specific to him?
Waller was one of the guys who we went after, and we went after him from day one. First draft in January, we pounded Waller, took him in our dynasty teams. We wanted. I just could not believe the talk about him, and I just couldn't understand it. Why everybody thought he was going to fall off when he looked phenomenal 2 years ago. I just didn't understand it. So we pounded Waller and everything we could.
Yeah, I'm looking again here, and you had such great depth too. Not Hopkins, Evans, Diggs, but then you had Boyd, who was great first half, obviously fell off. Robbie Anderson, on the bench. It was just such great depth there, along with being able to kind of ride the hot hand Fournette kind of there at the end. But and then Alvin Kamara's what do you have? 6 touchdowns in that play in that
could have had 8.
Could have had 8. I had him on my main event team, and I wasn't mad about it. But yeah, you're right. He could have absolutely had 8.
Jerry, what did you do at running back 2 throughout the season? So Fournette wasn't always playable. Neither was Latavius Murray. You have Gaskin was nice. Like, did you have a lot of waiver movement, or what was your running back 2 situation like?
Well, Gaskin was a waiver wire pick. I was after the first week. I said, he started. and he's on the waiver wire. I mean, you get a starting RB on the waiver wire, okay. So I bid like $5 for him and got him. Same thing with Herbert. Herbert, when Tyrod went down. Well, what a way to go down.
Week 2.
Yeah. I picked Herbert up then. Same thing for $5-10 or something. Picked them both up the same weekend. And if it wasn't for Herbert, we wouldn't be having this conversation tonight.
Yeah. The rest is history.
We got to get to Herbert before we run out of time. Let's talk about him. So he was a waiver pickup?
Yeah, I picked him up after week 1.
Adam, does that make you like sort of – does your stomach hurt right now? Is it an ache? Is it a sharp pain? When you think about Justin Herbert being on waivers in week 2, is it full body soreness? What kind of pain? How would you describe it?
No, it's, I was the same way. We picked up in one of our main events, we picked up Herbert after because you have to remember too, a lot of these main events, some people drafted in July, slow drafts for these main events. So you've got the rosters that have been set for months, and then before training camp and all that. So, and then there wasn't much training camp, and Herbert, like even if you watch the HBO special there was not much on Herbert for the Chargers. And so I picked him up in the league, and I get the excitement there from Jerry about picking him up. But Jerry, so was there any preseason prep work? Who do you trust? What are your kind of some of your go-to things that you're researching and studying? Do you have any favorite sites, favorite columns by anyone?
I own a parlor car company, so I'm on the road a lot. So I listen to a lot of Sirius XM radio. Okay. There's a guy in the morning, John Hansen. I forget the name of his program, but it's kind of ironic. I listen to him pretty religiously, and the guy who won the FPC $500,000 championship 2 years in a row also listens to that program. So
okay,
that's not an endorsement. I don't know what it is. Then I do this guy's called Casey, football scientist.
Yeah, Casey Joyner.
There you go. I download his gold package. It's worth I don't know, whatever it is, the $100 or whatever it is, and
sounds like it's worth $500,000 to me.
Yeah, there you go.
Hey Jerry, I'll just ask you this while we're live, or I could just call you later. But I'll want to share what you've said and maybe tweet that. And you wouldn't mind then if you allowed me to tweet Casey? I'm in a league with Casey Joyner, but I've never met him. And John Hansen, I could tell them what you said. That wouldn't be a problem, would it? They'd probably be very happy.
I hope you do it. Thank you for doing it.
Yeah, it'd be my pleasure. I mean, that's about the best endorsement that is possible, right? Like when Adam came up with the idea for this show, he was basically all nuts and bolts. He's like, I want to talk to people who won money about how they did it. And so the people who helped them, I mean, we want to give them the credit, and we want to show other people this is really how it worked. So, that would be definitely be something.
Too?
Matt Waldman, yes, I'm in the same league I'm in with KC. Matt is in also.
Well, tell him thank you. His report's tremendous. If you do dynasty football and you don't get his report, you're not doing it right.
The rookie scouting report.
The rookie, exactly. I could not agree more. I mean, Matt is such a great guy, and I can't wait to share this with him that you said that. So, 2021, Jerry. I feel like what you're probably doing is just not playing fantasy football and just drinking Mai Tais all day.
I've done about 45 best ball drafts already this year. So
what a guy!
I'm thinking that we've been in a couple together. Should I look for the bullseye name, or what should I do?
Absolutely. Everybody's taking shots at me, so you might as well too.
Bullseye,
I didn't connect it until tonight, but Adam, all my teams in FFPC, I'll tell everybody now, not that it is a big deal, but all my teams are named for hats.
Oh, there you go.
So if you're in a league where somebody has a team name for hats, named after hats, that could be me. It doesn't have to be. But
you mean like hats like New Era?
No. Berets, visors, sombreros. Oh, okay. It started with Matt Schauf of Draft Sharks because Matt gave me a hard time, which I invited. I asked him to give me a hard time, to be honest, with that sombrero I wore after one of the shows we did. So it just started like that, organically, I believe.
That's right. I love it. I'm actually draft guy and all my. I should change my Twitter handle to draft guy because that's my name and all the because all the good names were taken, like fantasy football addict and all the fun addict fantasy football names were gone. So I had to think of something. So yeah, that's me, and I'm in 800 drafts too. So
Yeah, Jerry. Well, listen, good for you. Congratulations on all your success, the big win. You and Phil, yeah, we're shooting for you, but you welcome that. Would you rather win and have people shooting for you, or neither?
Oh, you'd rather have the win and have people shoot at you. I mean, that's the name of the game.
that's right.
So you bring on that challenge, and we'll be looking for you in the room. Thank you, Jerry. Congrats again.
Thank you, and thank you for having me on.
Thanks so much, Jerry.
All right, Jerry Hooton out in Washington State, the big winner.
Big winner. I'm jealous.
I mean, there's always luck.
Sure.
Whether that's Herbert or whether that's, Gaskin, hard work pays off. You and I are in, whether it's the big leagues or the home leagues, when you just keep throwing your darts, right? Whether it's those guys or other guys, you keep throwing your darts. I'm sure he picked up lots of guys that we could not see on that roster because by the end of it, he didn't need them anymore. He hit the bullseye and hit the bullseye enough times that he was all right. So
that's right.
Could you have possibly last year? There's always this too. You couldn't have won this tournament without that Kamara game, maybe, or did all the top teams have that 6 touchdown game in the end?
I think so. I'd have to go look at Abib's for the football guys and see if he had him. I think so. The thing that really, this sounds funny, or maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm just been doing this too long. Like when he went crazy, I was excited because I had him in my main event team. But I also realized too that when it's your first round pick, a lot of people in the tournament have him. So if it was like Myles Gaskin type player that went for 6 touchdowns and nobody was starting him, then you can really separate yourself. But when it was Kamara, so I think I'm not going to be 100% accurate here, but I think when the week started, I think I was 180th. And after he had his 6 touchdown game, I think I was 101st. So it moved me up 79 spots or whatever. But it basically just solidifies all the Kamara owners to be in the money is really what it does.
Well,
it's a huge game breaker when it's a player that nobody else really started and he goes for 6 touchdowns.
Sure. It depends on how far back you are. If I remember right, the Kamara game was on Christmas Day.
Yes.
And Gaskin, if that's the same weekend, it's the game, the Dolphins and the Raiders, where Aguilar has the big catch, and then, maybe before that, but Gaskin breaks the long one. Fitzpatrick throws the ball from his butt that was caught down the sideline. I feel like that's maybe the next night. And so, you look at right or wrong, you look at a main event winner and you line it up with what happened in week 16, it's going to make sense.
Of course, for sure.
So, but you got to get there. The harder work, of course, is to get there. And then everybody in that situation would know you take your chances. Well,
and the exciting part is too, even like you were saying, the whole, it's just one play. It's just one touchdown. I think Abib won the football guys on that last touchdown pass from Allen to Diggs, where he's rolling left and throws a laser beam across the body to Diggs in the back of the end zone. Just an insane play to win $500,000. Absolutely insanity.
You always mention how we're in Western New York, and I've been on the Bills post-game show for most of the last 20 years. I couldn't enjoy it. That was my first COVID night. I was isolated in my bedroom while my wife watched the game. She didn't even watch the Bills, but last year was one of those years where everybody did. So she was down in the living room of her house watching the game. It was and I'm watching the game on the Yahoo app on my phone, Monday Night Football, and I'm beating a guy by 38 points or something. It's a league that I've always cashed in it, a home league, but I've never won it. And I was, let's say, 40 points ahead. This is a real story. I was up maybe 40 points ahead late Sunday. The Bills game is a Monday night game, week 16. Late Sunday, Eagles, Cowboys. and Jalen Hurts fumbled twice. The second one was totally not a fumble, but he was my quarterback that week. I loved it. I felt so smart. Like I started Jalen Hurts. I trusted it. I'm winning. I'm going to win this league finally. The fumble was called on the field. Of course, it's overturned. It wasn't. And like, okay, well, that sucks, but I'm still up 37. And then Allen went up the next night, put up 38. And it ended with that play. Once that play happened, he came out of the game.
Yep.
The Bills had blown out a Patriots team that, since we were in diapers, has just owned them. I'm upstairs alone in my bedroom. The kids can go in the house. My wife's in the house. Everybody's laughing, and I'm coughing. I'm supposed to do the post-game show. I can't do the post-game show because I'm off work and I'm sick.
Brutal.
And I lost by less than a point to a guy that is in the Empire Niagara League with us.
Take it out.
By the way, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about him at some point in detail because he is in that league. You're in that league. He is in it. Anyway, that's a memorable night. Actually,
now that I think about it, we probably should ask Jerry, but that touchdown to Diggs probably put him over the top too for the main event. So, yeah,
he had two. He had the earlier one where he broke away. He caught the ball like the 30 and just ran right up the field.
That's right. Oh, beautiful stuff. So,
well, you got to love fantasy football.
Love it.
Let's talk about the draft coming up.
Oh, okay.
Oh, James Conner. I forgot about James Conner. Let's do that.
Sorry, I pre-did it there.
Don't be sorry because it was my mistake. James Conner today signing with Arizona. What does it mean, Adam?
Yeah, honestly, I think so. We talked about, the running back situation there. I think it was 2 weeks ago, and Edmonds. I had put Edmonds as a buy, or your stock rising type deal, and we discussed, they're probably going to get a running back and all this other stuff, and he's probably not going to end up being a stock up. But if James Conner is the only thing that they add there, I think Edmonds is probably a winner here, because I don't think that Conner's the as good of a running back as they could have gotten if they took one in the top 3 rounds in the NFL draft. I don't think they'll be as committed to Conner as they would be if they took a running back in the first 3 rounds. And I just kind of think Conner's kind of done. I think he's kind of he had that one great year and he had 1 million touches and he got banged up, and I don't think he's ever recovered from it. He said he's only averaging 4.2 yards a carry over the last 2 years. 33rd in Pro Football Focus's rushing grades last year. I don't think Conner is just this super stud. And I think that Edmonds, I think his stock is going to go down in these drafts as far as ADP, and I think he's probably the better bet there. What do you think?
I don't disagree. I don't want any running back on that team.
Sure.
Kyler Murray is the best runner on that team. That didn't change today. Murray has hogged rushing touchdowns like Allen has, or to a greater extent. Edmonds is not – he's not a 3-down running back. He was never going to be. Conner at this point, I don't care. Is that a respectable answer? Yeah. I don't want any running back on Arizona. I don't trust the coach to make optimal decisions. I think the quarterback could be great, but I don't love any of that. AJ Green, Hopkins is, he's an all-time great. He is a super player. Yep. And I think Murray can be too. But as far as the running game, they probably draft someone too, and it just gets worse. I mean, there are so many running backs, late day 2, day 3. Doesn't Arizona do one of those guys? And you take your Gainwells or your Kylan Hills or Stevensons, any of those guys, don't they just sort of do that? I don't want to touch Arizona in terms of running. In terms of the Arizona, I want Hopkins or Murray. After that, nothing.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. I think even Drake last year, as much as he was a bust, I think he finished so it was an RB13 or something like that. So I think that would be like, if he's in the Kenyon Drake role, I think RB13 is his absolute ceiling, and I don't even think I think it's more of Edmonds has a better chance to get there. Again, he doesn't have the good yards per carry, but he's good at he's the pass catching back. But like you said, no goal line work. Kyler Murray isn't really checking the ball down because he's a he's a slinger. He'll sling it downfield or he'll take off with it himself. So yeah, it's an avoid, but I think if there is some value there, I think it's Edmonds.
You know what else? So Kenyon Drake might have been running back 13, but if you had Kenyon Drake on your team the whole season, were you happy?
No.
I mean, you would have there would have been good games where you didn't start him. There was that Monday night Dallas game where he broke the 80-yard run on the last play, but that felt like cheating a little bit. And the same thing happened with David Johnson the year before on the same team with the same coach, where you started David Johnson all the time. You hated your life, but at the end of it, your friend goes like, well, he was running back 10. Like, yeah, great, thanks. I didn't win anything. All I could do was maybe put him in the lineup, maybe not. Couldn't play him. I was never happy. Stay away from Arizona. They sound like a good idea, Adam, with Kingsbury. He is sort of hip, or maybe that's worn off, but at least he was. Murray, they seem like a good idea. I don't know.
Yeah, I think Kingsbury might be a fake sharp. I'm not sure he's what they cracked him out to be or what people cracked him out to be. And yeah, he actually was RB15 last year. You know, he's surrounded by guys like, you know, Mike Davis, J.D. McKissick, Naheem Hines. Like, you know, like you said, you could get those guys 8 rounds later. Those guys are 0 RB saviors, you know, and Kenyon Drake was a first-round pick. So, yeah, no, I get it. Probably avoid that running backfield for sure.
I think I definitely will. I mean, I have some Edmonds because, like the great Jerry Hooton.
That's
Sometimes you're in a draft and it's just like, this is the best idea. You never know. It's still April.
Right.
But I don't think I'll be on Arizona much at all in the next, 5 months. Yeah. Okay, well, this is really cool. The draft is coming up, and you have more experience in fantasy than I do. Yes or no? This is an amazing year, 2 weeks out, for trying to predict the possibilities. And that starts with quarterback. I mean, you have, in a redraft, quarterback is just sort of there. But you have several interesting ideas there. We know about Lawrence. We might think we know about Zach Wilson. Justin Fields, however, and especially if you extend this to Superflex. Ooh. So there is a lot on the line in the next 2 weeks, I think. I think if Justin Fields, and I can't wait to hear your opinion, if Justin Fields goes to San Francisco at 3, which is, there's still a lot of division about what will actually happen there, then I think he's easily the quarterback 2 or the overall 102 in Superflex drafts behind Lawrence. Maybe even 101, but probably not. I don't think there's any question about that. Everybody loves Kyle Shanahan. I think it's Fields. If he doesn't, then it's a mess.
100% agree. I would love to see Justin Fields in San Francisco. Couple reasons. 1, he's out of the AFC. 2, he's with Kyle Shanahan, is super, super sharp. 3, fantasy-wise, I mean, all the weapons they got there, Debo, Ayuk, Kittle. I mean, just think of the possibilities. Absolutely sensational. Would be awesome. I can't imagine that they traded up all that way for Mac. I just can't believe it, especially in today's day and age with the mobile quarterbacks, and Fields is just so good. From a fantasy perspective, those running quarterbacks, man, those guys are, I mean, look at all the top quarter, and Mahomes isn't a running quarterback, but he can run, Allen, Murray, Prescott, Lamar Jackson, Russell Wilson, and the list goes on and on. These are all top guys. So I would love to see Justin Fields in San Francisco. I would consider, I could be talked into him at the 101 for ahead of.
You could?
I could. Listen, the rushing is so big in fantasy. It's like, or at least trade back from 101 to 1-2 and take him. I'm probably not going to do it, but I could be talked into it. I'm still leaning to Trevor Lawrence. But yeah, right now, Justin Fields in regular redraft is QB 23, Mike. How high does he go how much higher does he move if he gets drafted by San Francisco?
Probably higher. I don't have that ranking worked out in my head, but probably higher. I mean,
do you take him ahead of Lawrence in redraft?
I doubt it.
Do you take him ahead of Carson Wentz?
Definitely.
Kirk Cousins?
No.
Okay. Baker Mayfield?
Coin flip.
Okay, so you got him right in the QB 15-14 range. Right in
Fields
there.
on San Francisco.
Yep, Fields on San Francisco. So I think that's exciting. I think that's fun. Yeah, I would be. And then if like you said, if he doesn't, could be a disaster.
I just want to say I love this show because those are such good questions. Like Mayfield, there's a pretty good range of opinions on Mayfield, and Mayfield the situation is really nice. You'd like for him if they had a little bit less of affection running the ball. They still have Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. I don't know, but Beckham back. When are we going to talk about Beckham? Do we do a bonus show? Because I want to just talk about so many of these players.
Yeah.
And like the rookies are what it's about. But in the next 2 weeks, there's so many veterans whose fortunes could be, Jerry, this is also going to be free. You don't have to pay extra for this next couple of minutes. But Jerry had Myles Gaskin. Right now, if you have Myles Gaskin in like a dynasty league, you're on the edge of the cliff. Like that could either be really good.
Yeah.
Think of Edmonds today. Edmonds in the morning was this, and now he's this. Yep. So Gaskin, nobody knows if Miami's going to address that. The problem I have for him, or the worry I have for him with respect to the Dolphins, is they have lots of draft picks.
Yes.
And teams with lots of draft picks tend to blow them because they feel like, we don't need, there's only so much we can do. We're not going to trade for more draft picks. There's still talk about Miami trading up again. Yeah. They move down and then back up. So I think Gaskin is probably in trouble because they'll have so many picks that they'll get to rounds 2 or 3 and just be like, okay, Javonte Williams or Gainwell or one of those guys. And if it's high enough, that really cuts into Gaskin. So there's so much to talk about this time of year. It's better than the season, actually. It's better than the season.
I don't know about that, but I do like talking about it for sure.
I can't wait for the season to be over.
Right. That's right. That's right.
All right. Who do you like next?
Yeah, Etienne. You want to talk about him?
Yeah, I mean, you still have, including the Dolphins, you still have a small number of teams that you really don't know what they're going to do. Pittsburgh is one of them. The Jets also have the 2 firsts. So the Jets could be another one of those teams where it's like, okay, we can afford this, even though pick 40 or whatever is worth the same, whether you have 2 or 3 picks in front of it or none. Really, it should be worth the same. But teams don't think like that. I drink. Sometimes I don't think like that either. But fundamentally, 40 is 40. So whatever the Jets number is, those teams with the extra picks could feel like that Jacksonville, they could feel like they can afford running backs. My guess would be the top running backs go to teams like that. That is the Jets and the Dolphins. They both need running backs. So I would think that happens. One interesting team with these top guys, Etienne, Najee Harris, is Atlanta. Now, Atlanta signed Mike Davis, and I can't decide whether that's meaningful. Is that somebody that really negates the possibility of these running backs going to that team, or doesn't mean anything, or somewhere in between?
Yeah, I think it's somewhere in between. I think Mike Davis is a guy that just always seems to latch onto teams and always be effective. Chicago, Carolina. He's just a guy that understands how to play running back. He's a great, for fantasy-wise, he's a great handcuff back at the very least. You saw what he did for McCaffrey last year, but yeah, no, they're gonna take somebody. They're gonna add to that room. It could be a Travis Etienne. What interests me about Etienne is, man, I was so high on Etienne for like 2 years. I wanted him to come out last year. And I don't watch a ton of college football, but whenever I watch, it's usually like the high-profile games, and Etienne just looked sensational. But then I get, I followed Jay Moyer on Twitter. We're actually having him on, I think, next week, actually, to come on. I really want to pick his brain on.
I'm free.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's right. Awesome.
I'm available for that show.
We'll let you know if there's room. But Etienne is a guy that he is not as high on as other people. He references like not playing through contact and all the stuff that guys who watch film kind of study. So I can't wait to pick his brain on Etienne because I'm kind of a little lower on Etienne this year as I was last year, hoping that it came out. But I think in the right situation, he could be like, he's great in space. He's great. He can catch the ball. He's super. He's very fast for his size. He's kind of a long strider, but yeah, if he can get in the right spot where he's catching passes, and he's getting goal line work, like, which is what we want for all of our fantasy running backs, right? I think he can be very valuable. So we'll see kind of where he goes. He could go at the end of the first, to maybe someone like Tampa or maybe someone like Buffalo. Hopefully not Buffalo. I don't want them to spend their first on him. But he could also go at the top of the second, like you said, to someone like the Jets, or someone like Miami, where they're in there because they need a starting runner or running back.
Well, don't forget the lesson last year, if it is one. So Clyde Edwards-Helaire was rated below Jonathan Taylor, DeAndre Swift, maybe others on everybody's list. And then he went at the end of the first round, and that was a big story.
Yes.
And then Taylor and Swift went very early in round 2, and there was always sort of a thick line between Edwards-Helaire and those players. Should there have been? I mean, if you look back on it, you were a big Taylor guy, I know.
Yeah.
But of the 3, Edwards-Helaire is probably the one you want third in Dynasty right now. But you bought the situation and the fact that the first round meant an extra year contract.
Yes.
And the Kansas City factor versus Detroit, say, I don't know. Like, maybe after last year, I want to not worry about that so much. So if a team at the end of round 1, Buffalo's a good candidate. Hopefully they trade down, but they always trade up. I don't know. Nobody's perfect.
I think Bulldog talked about it a couple of times while you were on vacation about taking ETN or about not trading back and trading up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think they use the running back enough to really spend a first round pick on one. But yeah, no, it'll be interesting to see kind of where they go. And do you have any other thoughts on like Najee Harris as far as landing spots or how you feel about him as an actual player?
I'm not a guy who watches film. I hear a lot of people talk about how important it is what they've seen on film. I don't really care. The teams put millions of dollars into that same investment. They get it wrong all the time. I'm pretty sure guys like you and me are getting it wrong just as often, if not more often. So my attitude about Harris from what I've consumed is generally pessimistic.
Yeah.
But I acknowledge there's not a strong chance I'll be right about that. He is somebody for me in drafts, just if you care. And I don't think you should, but for me in drafts, he would have to go to a perfect team, whoever that is, like Pittsburgh in the first round or something.
That's what I was going to say. Pittsburgh might be the spot for him now.
Then okay. But otherwise, I feel like people around me are going to want to invest in him more heavily than me, and then I'll try to take advantage the other way. So I don't know.
Yeah, what's interesting to me is I feel like last year's running back class was so much better than this year's running back class, and you only had one running back taken in the first, and that was Edwards-Helaire with the very last pick. So I can't imagine, teams taking a bunch of running backs in the first. I think what's the line? Is it 0.5? I think.
Yes.
Yeah. So
the DraftKings line is.
The DraftKings line, yeah. So there's not going to be more than one taken probably. I think it's going to be all second round. It's going to be, mid-second round picks. And so it might not even be those teams at the top of the second again. Because like I said, I don't think Najee Harris or ETN are as good as the top guys that came out, last year. So I think that was a great way to put that. If Harris goes to the right, Pittsburgh, I got Pittsburgh on my mind because Connor's gone. Harris is kind of that big back, but I think he's much better than James Conner. But that's something that the Steelers would do, I think. Because I don't think they can rely on Big Ben for 17 games next year.
ETN is the most interesting to me of the group because I think last year, with all these names mentioned, he would have been first. And if ETN is in the draft last year, I bet he goes to Kansas City, if not earlier, because he is at least the player, Edwards, in every way. Yeah. He's at least that player. So he should go to a good team that wants to use him a little bit less than all the time. And that's not great for fantasy. And then you have Harris, who may be, sort of the opposite of that generally. I don't know. I mean, I'm not trying to talk like somebody who researches it, but I think sort of the research is almost, it gets to a point where it's just not worthwhile. It just becomes noise. And Javonte Williams is interesting. I think Kylan Hill is interesting. I think Gainwell might be. He's a great receiver as a running back. A lot to consider. Let's get to two more guys before we get fired, before they just cut us off. And like the internet it's just we can't even have the internet
crashes.
Right.
That's right.
Jamar Chase.
Yeah.
So more likely than not a top 5 pick, at least top 6 with the Dolphins at 6. You have a perfect outcome for him. Like he's more the number 1 receiver than anyone is the number 1 running back, but he's not Trevor Lawrence either. Chase is a very highly rated prospect. What's perfect?
Are we talking fantasy or what are we talking?
Well, of course we're talking fantasy. Like 2 teams near the top are Miami and Philadelphia.
Yep.
Philadelphia is lower. They traded with each other. But neither has sort of the build as a passing offense that would make you so excited. Atlanta has a lot of guys already. Like Atlanta has a lot of traffic.
Right.
So I think with Chase, Detroit is somebody that could be interesting, but Detroit is kind of bereft at this point. I don't know if there's like the perfect team.
Yeah.
Where New England trades up. They're not trading up for him probably. No. There's not the perfect team there for him.
The team I love the thought of is Cincinnati. I love the thought of him going there with all those weapons, a young quarterback, his college quarterback.
Yeah.
And then just being unstoppable. Now, I think they're going to be smarter than that and take the offensive tackle because they need the offensive tackle more. Obviously, they have Higgins, they have Boyd. Like, they're set. They have Mixon. They're set at the skill positions. But the thought of him going into that offense, kind of like Atlanta. But Atlanta, again, they have a quarterback that's on the back 9. If they can put, with Cincinnati, putting him with Burrow and Higgins, 1 year into his career, and Boyd still young. I mean, that offense could just be sensational. I've seen him mocked to the Lions. It's perfect for the Lions because there's no way they're not taking a receiver in the top 10, I don't think. I mean, I guess you could wait to the second because it's a pretty deep class. But, I mean, Jamar Chase would be perfect for them because they need a receiver, and he could definitely be there. So I think and then for fantasy too, if he goes to the Lions, he's getting – the bulk of the work. I mean, he's going to come right out of the gate and get probably 23% target share for the team. And if he can get that, as bad as Goff is, I think he could do some work. He'd probably be a better fantasy receiver right out of the gate with Detroit than he would be with Cincinnati.
If Matt Millen were still running the Lions, absolutely, they would draft a wide receiver.
That's right.
But this is close to a perfect player, and does somebody unforeseen trade up? I don't know. Like I want to invest in this player, but I think there are a lot of bad outcomes for him in the draft. Sure. We'll have the next 2 weeks to get to sort of hone in on that as it gets closer. I can't wait. Let's wrap on Kyle Pitts. Everybody considers Kyle Pitts the best tight end prospect of all time. How high can he go? He can't get to the top 2 or probably the top 3. The team there has George Kittle anyway, and they traded up, so that's probably out. 4 is not insane.
4 is not insane. No. I absolutely, not that it matters. I absolutely love Pitts. I remember just starting to watch, because you started looking at the mock drafts probably like a month ago or so, maybe a little bit more than a month ago. And Bills fan, let's see what the tight end prospects are. And I saw Pitts. I pulled up, I'm like, oh my God, this guy is insane. So I'm texting my buddies, the Bills should get Pitts. They're like, he's going to be gone in the top 10. So even like 2 months ago, people were all over this guy in the top 10, top 5. He's so good. He's 6'5", 6'6".
4'4".
4'4". I mean, I was even talking with the guys like, should a team in the back end of the first round, maybe not Kansas City, but like if this guy's a Hall of Fame tight end, how can you know? But if he's a Hall of Fame tight end, is he worth 2 first-round picks and a second? Like, you're going to dominate that position forever and ever and ever. I mean, he could be. His ceiling is that good. Atlanta at 4, Cincinnati, Detroit. I mean, I'm probably not Detroit because they have Hopkins, but those 2 guys could take him. He'd slide right in. Atlanta loves to use the tight end too, so I could see them making a move there. But the problem with fantasy, man, is these guys these tight ends take, I don't care who you are, it's taken forever not forever, but like 2-3 years for these guys to really pop. And I love Pitts so much, and I'm not, I think his ADP right now, according to Fantasy Mojo for FFPC, yeah, he's the tight end 5 in fantasy drafts.
I know. I'm to blame.
It kills me.
I'm to blame.
Are you to blame? Yeah.
A little bit.
I'm going to have some of him because I need some of him, but it sucks that there's no value. Like, oh, Pitts, I'm going to get him out from everyone's, get him, before everyone else does. And, he's tight end 5. Yeah. Tight end 5 going in the 4th round for a rookie. Like a rookie tight end has never produced anywhere near that type of production. So, that's his ceiling, I think, as a rookie. So I probably won't have a ton of him, but it sounds like you're forcing his ADP up.
A little bit. He's very exciting. I think sports in the next 10 years is all trending toward positionless. Baseball's already there, hockey, defense forward, everybody's doing everything. And wide receiver, tight end, Jimmy Graham brought it up in a grievance when Jimmy Graham said,
yes.
well, I'm split out wide 5 out of 6 plays, so why do you call me a tight end for purposes of my salary?
Right.
I don't know. ETN is like that at his position, and so is Pitts. Atlanta is nice. Like if you're drafting for this year, Atlanta at 4, if they do that, great. If I run Atlanta, I'm not, unless I can trade down and do it then. I don't care if Carolina's in my division. I would trade with them. I think all that stuff is just, come on. So if somebody wants a quarterback at 4, if Field slips to 4, if I'm Atlanta, I'm getting 10 offers and I'm taking the best one. It's easy. And then maybe I get to Pitts, or maybe I get to Jalen Waddle, or maybe it's Sewell or whoever, but I'm getting somebody's first. Devonta Smith. I'm getting somebody's first next year, and I can be just fine there. I'm going to go with Matt Ryan because I owe him a lot of money, and he's not bad, and that's fine. I'll get my quarterback in the future some other way in the future. So that's what Atlanta should do. And they have new management, so maybe they'll get that right. But Pitts is very cool, and maybe in the next week or 2 or both, we'll talk about what to do with him in these sort of dynasty drafts, redrafts. They're coming up. Empire Niagara, the much talked about Empire Niagara draft, highly anticipated, is just a little bit more than a month away. That's an auction startup, Empire League, that you and I are a part of. I love the guy who's running it. I feel like that guy is super sharp. And we'll talk about all these guys in the next 2 weeks. Like, what do you do for in the dynasty scene? Because, in fact, my friend Joe, Sneaky Joe from WGR today said, can you make an argument for Pitts at 101 in a 1-quarterback dynasty rookie draft? And I thought that was a great question. He's good at the great questions. So
is this tight end premium?
No.
Okay, then no. I can't.
Okay, I'll tell him.
But tight end premium, I was, losing sleep the other day because I have a league that I pick at the 101. And I have a really good team. I just happened to make a trade with a guy, and I'm like, man, I could certainly use this guy for the next 12 years, but do I maybe try to trade back to the 3 spot? That's probably what I would try to do to get him.
Well, it's a great time of year. Thanks, everybody, for watching The Deep End. We did not get to the Shark story. Tune in next week for the Shark story. It's not that good. I wouldn't tune in next week for that, but you could do that anyway and hear us talk about fantasy football. Jay Moyer next week.
Love it.
Okay. I'm Mike Shope with Adam Krautwurst. Thanks for watching. Thanks to Jerry Hooton for being along too. See you next week.